Welcome to the Giant Shoulders Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Augustine. This podcast is about two things. First, celebrating those who have gone before us, paved the way for success in life and in business. And second, about those who are well on their way to paving the way for the next generation to have success in both life and business. No matter where we are in life, we are truly standing on the shoulders of giants. So join me as I sit down with guests from many walks of life, many professions, and hear who their giants are in their life and what kind of legacy they want to leave for others. Thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Giant Shoulders Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Augustine, and today we have an awesome episode for you. I'm really excited about it. One of my favorite people, Miles Veth, is joining us today. Miles is the CEO, founder of Veth Group, and him and I have been connected for the past couple of years. He's got an incredible story, and Miles, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm holding the phone here, but super excited to be on with you.
No, you're good, man. I'm glad we were able to do this today. So thanks for making some time.
Absolutely.
So really first, Miles, to give people kind of a background into you. I mean, I know we've known each other for a couple of years now, but in a couple minutes, I guess, what do you want people to know about you, who you are, what's important to you? I guess give us kind of the 10,000 foot view of Miles Veth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say the biggest thing about me is I'm a Christian. Want to be known as someone who tries to follow Jesus every day, or who does follow, but which involves trying to. I am an entrepreneur of about 3 years. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So my dad and uncle definitely paved a path for me to do professional services consulting. So I run my own marketing agency with a great team of about 6 people out of Wheaton, Illinois. In terms of other fun facts, I played baseball in college. I wanted the Yankees to take me. As of yet, the Yankees haven't taken me. So we'll see if that changes. But basically our business is really good at setting appointments with business-to-business prospects. And I do a lot of branding for people on LinkedIn. So sort of 2 services. And thrilled to be on with you. And if anyone would know one thing about me, I just hope it would be I was kind. And I think in business, I just want to bring kindness to everything I do.
Awesome, man. Well, I will say my own personal experience, you have done that incredibly well. I was telling you this the other day, but for the benefit of everybody listening, every time I get a phone call or a text message from Miles, it's like a mini Christmas. It's like I can't wait to unwrap the phone call, see what he's going to say, or the text message, and see what nuggets of wisdom he's dropping. So it's always good to hear from you, and so you're doing that well.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
So let's talk. Let's transition a little bit. What this podcast is really, I think the idea of standing on the shoulders of giants in our society, in our life, in what we do. And personally, it's hard for me to separate my own personal achievements with who in my life has helped me get there. And so, Miles, in your opinion, if you could talk to a couple people in your life who you feel, you already mentioned your uncle and your dad as really inspirational in kind of your founding of Veth Group and that, but who are some people in your life that you feel like are the giants that you're standing on their shoulders of?
So there are so many. I couldn't even begin to name. I think I'd break it into 2 buckets, which are people I've personally gotten to know, and then people who I haven't gotten to know, but who've really influenced me from a distance. So the second group, since it'll be a little shorter, I think John Piper is someone I just have a massive amount of respect for, his heart for God, the way he pursues truth, especially in a generation even of Christians that's kind of walking away from the Bible. I think Tony Robbins is someone who's just done an incredible amount for me, teaching me about mindset, how most of our life is really about what's inside our ears, not what's outside of them. And I think a third one that has just meant an absolute ton to me is Ray Dalio. who kind of wrote down all his business principles. So I built an entire business on the back of Ray Dalio's methodology in a different industry. In terms of people who have meant a lot to me that I actually know from a Giants perspective, I'd say the first one's definitely my dad. He raised me at a really young age to have a intense work ethic. He's the brightest person I've ever met, and I could not be anywhere without him. I've not made it as far as him by any stretch, but I wouldn't even be on the path without him. I think a second person is his brother, like I mentioned, who's just taught me a ton about professional services and marketing and self-discovery as it relates to business and career. There's I guess two people in Wheaton, and I'll be quiet. Dr. Paul Lee has meant a ton to me as a mentor. He's a professor of business at Wheaton, who's really the first person to have integrated faith as a Christian in business for me. And that's something he's continued talking to me every single week since I was a student to graduating 4 years later. And the last one is Dan Linquist, who is one of the leaders of a big investment company called First Trust in Wheaton. I think he's one of the best models I've ever seen of living a godly life with humility. So he's one of the more successful business people I've ever met. I think the guy manages like $130 billion or something with a team of people. And he just blows me away at the way he loves his family, how he's involved in his church, makes time for young people like me. So I think those people have all modeled for me really that consistent theme across the board of excellence, but really like rigorous hearts for God that I hope I can emulate.
That's awesome, Miles. Thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's no surprise. I mean, I look at you. I've looked up to you for a while in your success in business and how you carry yourself and with the selfless heart that you serve others with. And so it's no surprise that there's a laundry list of people who have contributed to that. And I think, likewise, they would probably look at you and think really great things about you, paying them those compliments and feel proud that they've had a part to play in your journey. So I just think that's a really cool, the circle of life that we get to experience as humans here on Earth. So.
I don't know if they'd say the same thing back, but yeah, I've definitely been really, really grateful to get to be in their lives. They put up with me at least. Yeah.
That's good. Well, that's all we can hope for sometimes. So, one of the things I want to touch on. So, you talked about specifically your dad kind of bringing you up and instilling kind of discipline and work ethic. One of the things that's always impressed me about you is your insane capacity. I think, a lot of people at the end of the week, they work a 40-hour work week and they're just like, man, I'm ready for the weekend. Right. And you texted me today and you said, hey man, been going since 3 a.m. And it's like just another day in the life of Miles Veth. Like, so where did that come from? Is that something that you developed over time? Has that just been a natural thing for you? I guess I'm super interested to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I feel like one of the funny things about me is I always give really specific answers, which people often find extreme, but can't change myself. So I would say I was one of 6 kids. I think I have an incredible mother. My dad provided for my mom in a way I've hardly ever seen a man provide for a woman financially and for our entire family. Just to bless us like from scratch. He had absolutely nothing to paying for our college and just giving us every opportunity imaginable, including launching Veth Group. I think I have always had in the back of my mind since being about probably 20 years old, I was going to need to someday take care of a wife and then kids because I knew that I wanted to have a big family. So I am not in that process quite as far as you in terms of having kids, but I think what motivates me mostly to have that amount of motor is how it's been modeled for me that like if you're going to put up the white flag on that goal of providing and treating other people in your inner circle like gold, you better have fought so hard for it. And I think like the waking up at 3 a.m. for me is just like I want to thank myself when I'm 50 and I'm at some child's graduation that they didn't have to pay for it because when I was 28 I was staying up all night. So hopefully I have a fighting chance of spending time with them and coaching Little League while also modeling how it was done for me. So that's probably the biggest single motivation.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I think, I mean, you and I are both relatively young, but I mean, you're a little bit younger than I am. And I think for young people to have that foresight, and to be able to see past working for the weekend and kind of these short-term things, I think that says a lot about you. And that's a huge, piece to, I think, prolonged success, because if you look at our life, right, I think Gary Vee says this all the time, no matter how old you are, you're still young. And you've got the whole rest of your life ahead of you to do great things. And I think you're embodying that at a young age and taking advantage of that, and starting early. And so I think that's commendable. So much better than waiting and trying to start behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's what I'm trying to do. I think it's a day by day process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk a little bit more about Veth Group as like from its roots, from its kind of inception. Like, so Veth Group as a whole is a demand generation company, right? So you help your clients basically get traffic through whatever their doors are, whatever they're trying to get in front of people, and you try to expand their ripple effect, I guess. Get in front of more people, get more meetings, however you do that. Where did that come from? Was that something that you came up with on your own? Did somebody talk to you about that? Or like from the very, very beginning, I guess, take us back through.
Yeah. So there's another mentor of mine, Greg Swain, who was, I worked with at EMC, who taught me very early. He's a tech engineer who's oddly the best sales rep or one of the best sales reps I've ever seen. Greg taught me early on, you've got to come at this stuff sideways. So everyone you're competing with in these industries, and big company like EMC is going to be coming down the middle. Mm-hmm. You got to hit people in a way they've never seen. And he inspired me to just go totally outside the box while I was a rep at EMC. And I started to measure my experiments. Then I met another engineer named Wim Prest. Wim's an ex-Army veteran who transitioned into technology, is similarly kind of made a name for himself as a top cell phone salesman in New Hampshire, like one of the best ever at that. So he knew a lot about selling too. So the two of them kind of helped me craft a scientific method to prospecting. And then I went to work with my dad. My dad helped me kind of understand how to process it. He started to write code for me. We started to work together on, can we automate and modify the way these things work? And it's just become a obsession for me of how to open doors for people who are good people who just need a shot. And I think it's such a competitive world right now that, in a business like yours, it's absolutely insane to me that it's not about whether or not you're a good financial advisor. It's about whether you can get someone to be willing to hear you out. Mm-hmm. But that being true, I think Veth Group's, ethical burden is we got to choose clients that deserve to get in front of people and then give them disproportionately powerful marketing to do that. And that's always a challenge of, refusing people who you don't think should have more customers, and trying to make that judgment quickly, and making that sword as sharp as possible. But I'm super proud of our team, and we've got about 60 clients, and the results have been astounding to me from when we started. Someone got like 65 appointments last week in 1 week with us. So I look at we're that person's paying us half of what I was paid as an EMC rep, and we got them 65 appointments in 1 week, and I'm super proud of that.
That's incredible, man. That's really cool. I love what you're saying. I don't think we've ever talked about this really before, but I love what you're saying about getting the companies that deserve to be in front of people and giving them that kind of like superpower to separate them. That's so cool. Sorry, just that's not something we've ever talked about before. So learning new things here today. So that's awesome, man.
And I think for us, it breaks down to people who pay us, and then people at a tier where they either couldn't afford us, or they're a nonprofit, or Christians. Like there's some other filters at which I think we give away our services, and the same goal. It's like you just want to make the world a better place, because our little team's sending, we're going to be at like 3 million emails a month soon.
Oh my
gosh. We have a fair amount of influence at a 30% open rate. You're talking almost 1 million people reading stuff I'm still personally writing every month. So you want to wield that sword and steward it effectively. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, man. That's great. That's really great. So, man, I feel like we could talk about some of this stuff for hours. Now, in terms of kind of shifting the conversation a little bit, so we talked about the people in your life who have been kind of the giants in your life. If we were to fast forward, we'll say 20, 30 years from now, Miles, and somebody else was on this podcast, or you're just thinking about what you would want other people to think about you, and what would be like a successful legacy, I guess, for you. Take us through that. I'm sure you've got like a real specific goal here. I love your specificity, but I guess take us through kind of that 20-year kind of look back on what your dream and what your legacy goals are.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's a fun one to think about that most of us don't think about enough in our 20s. I don't think. So I, as a Northeasterner, love lighthouses. I grew up basically 5 minutes from the beach and have always loved lighthouses. So when I was in college, a verse that really spoke to me was Matthew 25:40, which is, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. And that stuck with me, of God has a special heart for the marginalized, and a special heart for the poor, and a special heart for those who are hurting. So I think when it's all said and done, when I want to be said of Veth Group or myself, is that was someone who was like a lighthouse when people's ships were in storms. And I think there's a portion of that is, helping a large company. We've got some massive clients, like Fortune 500 companies using us. But I think, to me, that is more the person who couldn't even afford Veth Group, but you were able to put food on the table for their family, or the nonprofit that raised money that you got to be a part of donating, or the young kid getting into sales that didn't know how to do something that you took the time to teach them. And I sort of break it down into a couple groups of people, which is that very inner circle, like your family and close friends, where, like, God willing, you just built a business that could serve them and protect them and provide for them. And then that broader circle of people the same way, as how did you make their lives better? So I think when it's all said and done, I want to have been someone where the ripple is that, like, in Jesus' name, I was like extremely kind in a way that ultimately brought all the glory to him, and was a shelter from a business perspective towards people who felt like they had no other out.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Specific. Yeah.
That's so cool though. And I've seen firsthand, we've been on calls where I know you're incredibly busy and you've got tons of other things to do, and you're spending time giving, and that's just so cool to see that. And there's a motivation behind that drives you forward. Are there currently some really, like, causes that are really top of mind for you? I know you've talked about a couple to me, but what are some causes that you feel like are incredibly impactful for you?
Yeah, it's another great question. I think one of them is our alma mater, Wheaton, I think, is struggling to stay relevant, struggling to get kids jobs, to adapt. So I think one of them is helping, Christian education transform and survive this innovation disruption, which I think it seems like it's happening. I think I'm really passionate about evangelism. Like, I've tried to do a lot on LinkedIn recently to send people Bibles, or just try to open the conversation about God. And I think a lot of people think about God in this sense of, he's up there and he's generally good, and someday heaven and hell exist. But if you're there with God in your mind, I like to try to nudge people to think, if that is God, how do you make sense of this Jesus person relative to your belief in God, as kind of the only human who's ever really claimed to have any godlike being and done anything historically significant enough to back it up? I think you've seen people who say, I'm God, in maybe an insane asylum. Then you've seen people who make a name for themselves that history remembers, like Alexander the Great or Napoleon or Attila the Hun, or some of these, I mean, people we still know their names like 1,000 years later, but none of those people in our record ever claimed to be God. And I look at Jesus as, LeBron James is a big icon right now. There's statues of him, he's on TV, but look at Kobe Bryant. I mean, it's gone like that. Like in 10 years, no one's going to know Kobe Bryant any more than they know Wilt Chamberlain's name. And I look at like a LeBron type figure as like, is LeBron so famous that we would change our modern calendar because of him? Like that we'd start at year number 6 is 6 years after LeBron was born. Or if you think about, if Donald Trump, with the fame Trump had, said, if he got a cancer diagnosis and said, he's on his deathbed, said, I'm going to rise again in 3 days. And imagine if he said that, how many people would be watching that? Like, and if you think about that, and then you say he, hypothetically rises again and people start talking about it. Imagine if our government had created so much upheaval, they said, we're going to kill anybody who says Donald Trump rose again. We can't find his body, but we're actually going to kill you if you say that. And 10,000 people who were supposedly eyewitnesses were willing to get burnt at the stake in Washington, D.C. to die for that lie. I just start to look at that, and I really want to encourage people. If you think God is up there, if you think there's an intelligent designer, if you're loosely Catholic or go to church once a year, or I just want to push people how do you make sense of the rest of this narrative? Because you kind of have to. And Napoleon himself, once said that I think the gap between Christianity and any other religion is too big for words to describe. And I just feel strongly from my own searching and experience that's true. And if I'm right, then it really matters that I reach other people. So I think that's something that I want to get better at. And I don't want to be harsh, but I also don't want to be so soft that, someone followed me on LinkedIn for 20 years and then they were put before God someday. If they were to say, I never knew who Jesus was, I don't want that to be because I didn't talk about it enough.
Yeah, well, and I think that's awesome, Miles. I think that's a good analogy. I think it is a thoughtful way to think about things, and certainly I think what we hear, unfortunately, a little bit too often as Christians is that I think at least that it's sometimes it doesn't seem like we're that different, and I know that. You're using your platform and the way you're doing things is different. And so I want to commend you on that. I think that's incredible. And not that you're doing it for somebody to say good job, but making a difference in other people's lives, and you never know where those ripples are going to go.
And I think it is interesting because you're right that a lot of people say, if Jesus was real, why don't Christians behave differently? But I think that the paradigm there is that, people should be able to earn God's approval. And I think the whole point of Christianity and what Jesus is saying is you're never going to earn my approval, but and we can't understand God. I don't know why it's so important to God that we place our faith in Jesus. Versus just be a good person, but that's the rules that he's laying out. They're not our rules. And so I think to say, yeah, you need to believe in me, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean your works are going to honor me. It doesn't mean you're going to earn my approval. I'm giving you it. I don't think disproves Christianity, but I think that the premise that we should get to dictate God is the one that I don't agree with. If someone says a good God couldn't allow for world wars, it's do we define what a good God is? Do we define what God can't do or can do, or what kind, what is good? Good is really defined by God. And I think when you really step back and you think, holy cow, if I believe in an intelligent designer, I'm really my ability to understand anything is predicated on on what God allows me to understand. And all I can just do is humbly trust every single word God says, because I don't like knowledge apart from God is almost like silly to believe at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, when that type of realization has definitely led me to be vocal and bold, because when I got to the point I was getting like 1 million views on LinkedIn, I started to think like, what do you really care if you add 3 extra Veth Group customers? Or do you want to be someone who really was generous and different and attach that directly to Jesus? And I have felt like spiritual warfare at times. I've gotten like horrible messages constantly at times. I think I really do believe in my heart, like for whatever reason, like Satan doesn't like what I'm doing, like, because I just think it has been like a pretty hard journey. But I look at it as like, you back to the Giants thing. Like, I look at Jim Elliott and Nate Saint and Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Oswald. I mean, I've got these guys' books everywhere, like C.S. Lewis and Oswald Chambers and all these people. And you realize like, like it's not about your comfort or your well-being or your anything. It's just all about God. And I think for me, like those people's examples, back to your Giants thing, have just humbled me, of like, you can't claim to be a Christian and then try to make $10 million a year for yourself. Because like it's just so far from the people you admire who built modern Christianity. And if you look at what they did, they really did take everything they have and give it to God. And I think I'm just continually convicted, like I need to do that. And building a business is not about miles. It's about God. And that's been a super cool process. So probably monologuing a bit, but I think it's a deep topic for me, for sure.
No, I love it, man. Well, it reminds me of, honestly, in the Bible, you think about Paul, and he was a tent maker, and that allowed him to improve his witness, and he used that as a tool, and he didn't become kind of selfish in that and allow that to bog down his witness, but he used it as a way to improve his witness and kind of facilitate that. And so I think that's a very biblical model, and I think I love your story, man. That's cool. That's really cool. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And then you as well. Like I love how you're doing it. I mean, I think even the podcast you're doing, like it's, I think we just massively overweight material success in America. Like if we hit a certain number, and I remember when I started Veth Group, I had $6,000 a month of revenue. So I basically a $70,000 a year job. And I thought, if I could just sustain $6,000 a month, I'd be the happiest man on earth, because I'm getting to post this stuff on LinkedIn, and I'd love to be an entrepreneur. And I thought, if there's any way the next 9 months, because I'm not something like a 6 or 9 month contract, if I could just get to $6,000 a month, I'm going to be the happiest person ever. I'll never want anything. I'll never need anything. It's just about $6,000 a month. And that was about 2.5 years ago. And I've been blessed to see Veth Group grow many, many times over from that, like more than I ever imagined. And it's so funny to me, because I still sit there today and I think if only Veth Group did $1 million a month, if it was just at $1 million a month, everything would be perfect. And you realize, like, well, wait a second, in 2 years, you went from needing $6,000 a month to now you have the audacity to think that until you're at $1 million a month, you can't be content. I think what it showed me is we always find more stuff. And the materialism trap is really deadly, because you can always find more stuff to spend on. There's never going to be a shortage of people marketing to you that theirs is the secret to happiness. And then you can never really live at that standard of living, because the security towards that standard of living is predicated, I know as a financial advisor, based off your income. So if I start buying Lamborghinis, I got to be able to sustain $465,000 a year of income. Like now, $465,000 you don't need to live on, but to keep your Lamborghini lease, you might. Right. Or enough of those things. And I read something in your world that was like, almost everybody, no matter their income, lives on the brink the same way. So it's like the $1 million earners have no more margin than the $100,000 earners. And it was like 90% of the time I heard that, I was like, what in the world? So you start to look at, as a human how dangerous that trap is. And I think as Christians, like C.S. Lewis had this fascinating quote where he said, like, in the moments of sin, Satan doesn't try to get us to hate God. He tries to get us to forget God. And it's like the object of our heart's love is so much like ourself and material. So I think, to close the loop on that, I think we got to be careful of that as entrepreneurs and business people. And like, it really isn't about that. And it's also not about, growing a social media following because you're inclusive. Like, I look at people where it's like, I'm the inclusive Christian entrepreneur. I've got 10 million followers, inclusive. It's like, it's only about Jesus. And any other thing that we're putting above Jesus is explicitly unbiblical as an idol. And I am continually aware of how flawed our human nature is, that I could even have the audacity when Jim Elliot did what he did at 28 years old to think I need $1 million a month to honor God or something. It is ludicrous. So yeah.
That's super interesting. I think, I'm not going to talk about myself too much, but I think the meetings that I've had with clients and things, that does relatively hold true. I think there are some individuals where they're in this unique time period where it doesn't, and that's young lawyers, young medical residents to doctors, and they're in these really unique time frames where they haven't grown their lifestyle to match their income yet. And so it's this really unique time period where it's like, what do you guys, sitting down with them, it's like, what do you guys want to do? Because you don't have all these obligations yet. And so it's really cool to get people's gears turning on that. And it would be really special if there was more of that going on, to say, like, how can we give, how can we serve others with this extra margin that we've built in? Because you're right, we're like, a lot of us as a society are like tapped out. We're living at the margin. I think we'd be well served to grow that in time and in money, both. So
yeah, and the Bible, it's so interesting. The Bible's so clear. Like, love me with all your heart, like all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, all your soul. And you think about, like, anything that is not first loving God is an idol. And God tells you this. I mean, I don't have a Bible right next to me, but like, this is how you love me, is that, like, obey my commandments, like serve the poor, be a faithful husband, raise godly kids, be patient in business, be generous in business. And you start to see that and you think, like, love is on God's terms. It's not on Miles and Ryan's terms. And when your eyes open to that, you think, holy cow, because you're right. Like, I wouldn't consider myself to live a super material lifestyle. But I'm sure someone else might say, like, why do you need, an Apple Watch? Or why do you need, why do you have different headphones throughout the day? Because, like, it hurts your ears. Like, someone in India has one headset all day. Like, you've got, I don't even know what brand this is because I didn't buy it, but like, you have a wallet that's not, like, what are all these things? Like, this could be plastic from Walmart. Like, why do you need the, like, Gucci leather wallet? And I think there's super important questions of, like, why do we do what we do, and how do we hold ourselves accountable, and how do we become aware of that? And I think it's a never-ending struggle of just, like, we're pre-programmed in America to buy stuff and think that makes us happy. And you're right, like, that's crazy that happens with your clients at $1 million as much as people at $100,000. And I want to be aware of that and find that balance between providing and giving security to people I love, without it becoming an idol, because even that, sought apart from God's an idol.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it brings us back to kind of this interesting point, talking about loving God with what we're doing. And if we want to love God, we obey his commandments. And Jesus is the perfect realization of the perfect keeping of the law, basically. And so that is just the coolest thing when we look at Jesus's life. It's not just, hey, we have to be a good person, but we're actually being obedient to God and what he's laid out for us. And that's how we love him. And that's the end goal. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing.
I love Oswald Chambers said, like, love means obedience. As the Bible says, like, if you love me, you're going to obey my commandments. And that always stands out to me, of like love is not like we want to make love about like, hey God, I'm going to build this $10 million business. You hop out of my way. I'm going to love you this way. And it's just so clear. It's like love is on God's terms, not on our terms. Yeah,
it is. And the really cool thing that I hear for you, it's, there's a difference between doing things out of obligation and then doing things because you feel compelled to do them because your heart is in a certain spot. And what I see and hear from you is that your heart is in a spot where you are compelled to do this. You're not, dragging the ball and chain saying, well, it'd be nice if I didn't have to do this, but I have to because I call myself a Christian and I want to be different. No, you're saying I get to do this. I get to be different. I get to choose who I go into business with. I get to choose who I want to magnify the voices of. I get to choose who I want to serve and mentor. And I just think that's so cool, man. That is so cool. So go ahead. Last.
Yeah, no, I don't think works cause salvation. I think that like Bible's pretty clear. So like, I really think it is.
Yep.
So I really believe in the Holy Spirit. Like, I think it's just like, you just get tugged on to no different than falling in love with a girl or like deciding you need to not work at an office all day. I think the Holy Spirit just pulls in you to the degree you can't resist. And that's Absolutely. A really cool feeling for sure.
Absolutely, man. Cool. We've talked about a lot today. I appreciate you being on here. What's the best place for people to reach out to you, connect to you, see what you're up to kind of on the daily basis?
Probably LinkedIn, just Miles Veth, VETH is probably the best. And I'm happy to set up time with anyone who I can help in any way. So if like marketing or networking for a job or anything, I would love to help anyone who hears this.
And those are not empty words. So those of you who made it to the end of this podcast, firsthand experience, that's a legit offer. I would take him up on it. He's an incredible guy. So Miles, thank you so much again for being on the podcast today. I look forward to having you back on soon, as soon as you'll be back on. But until then, my friend, take care.
Thank you so much, Ryan.